Okay, now let's just quickly go through this remove interval problem. This is a LeetCode 1272 number problem, and this is actually a LeetCode premium problem. So that is why I decided to solve this problem, because I know not many people can afford the LeetCode premium subscription, and since I already have it, I want to make the most use out of it. This is a LeetCode medium problem, and in this problem, basically, if you want, you can read this whole statement, but I'm just going to explain you that what it is asking us to solve. We are simply given an array of intervals that defines some intervals that we are already given, and these are already non-overlapping intervals. That is good in our favor. We are also given a new interval that we need to remove, which means if we remove this new interval, all the intervals that it overlaps, they needs to be removed from this original input list, and then we only need to return a new list of arrays or new array list that contains all the intervals that are not part of this to be removed part, and that is the answer we need to return. So let's just try to understand this with an example. Suppose again, just like this, we are given an interval that looks like this, and let's just give values 1 3 and then 5 7 and then 9 11. Okay, and then we are being asked to remove an interval that looks like this one. The value is 2 2, let's just say 6. Okay, this is what we need to remove, which means we can still keep this portion, but we cannot keep this portion. This we will have to get rid of, and even until this portion, everything needs to be getting rid of, but this portion we can still keep. So the answer in this case is going to be that first we will have an interval bit that is 1 to 2, then we won't have any interval until the value 6, but after the value 6 there exists an interval between values 6 and 7. So again, between 6 to 7 there is going to be a new interval, and then this 9 to 11 is going to left untouched because it was not part of this 6 to 11. So what the simplest solution we can do is, and in my opinion this should have been a LeetCode easy problem, not medium problem, but anyways, LeetCode has their own ways to decide. What we can simply do is, whenever we are given an input and we are also given the interval we are trying to remove, so if we just take a look at the same example again, basically what we can do is that simply we can check for every single interval that we iterate over to see whether it conflicts with this new interval that we are trying to get rid of. So in the first place we check, okay, this value is 1 2 3, and the value that we are trying to get rid of starts at value number 3, which means that there exists an overlap between these two intervals. So because there exists an overlap, we will have to do something, and what we are going to do is we are only going to pick the values between this 1 and 2. So between these two starting values we are going to create a new interval and store it in our answer. So 1 to 2 is going to be the new interval. Then this part we don't care. Okay, now we are on the next interval. Again, for the next interval we are going to check that does its ending value is greater than the ending value of the part we are trying to remove. If that is the case, which means there is a possibility that this interval will have some value that we can add in the answer. Suppose over here if we had one more interval that looks like this, okay, I'm just giving you an example, then this interval has to be removed completely because both of their starting and ending value falls between these two portions. So then we can't do anything in this case, which means that this interval is no use for us, so we will simply skip to the next one. But in this case, since this interval already has a value that is greater than the ending value of the part we are trying to get rid of, so then the value difference between the part we are trying to get rid of and the ending of this current variable, so that is 6 to 7, that would be stored in our answer. So 6 and 7 would be stored, and then all the other values, so in this case 9 and 11 will be left untouched, and we can add it to the answer. And this is the whole solution. Now if we see time complexity, in this case the time complexity is simply going to be big O of n, because we might have to iterate over every single value inside the given input. And in terms of space complexity, well, this is debatable. You can argue with your interviewer, since in this case we are explicitly told to create a new list and return that. We are just simply creating a new array list, and then we are adding all the solutions to that. So in this case we can mark the space complexity as constant. But if we are not being asked and still you are using a new array list, then it could be considered as big O of n. So you can discuss with your interviewer on how you want to treat the space complexity as. and this is the whole solution. Now let's move. I'll just show you the coding part for this remove interval problem. Okay, so for the coding solution for this remove interval part, this is the input we are given. Basically, we are given the set of intervals, and we are also given a new interval that needs to be removed. First, we are going to initialize a new list where we are going to store the result that does not contain any interval that is to be removed. Then we are going to iterate over the given input of intervals. First, we are going to check that if we find all the intervals that does not have any sort of overlap before this to be removed and after this to be removed, we can simply add it to our this new result list we created as it is. No issues with that. However, if we find that there exists an overlap, in that case we will have to pick the smaller portion. So between the starting values, we are going to pick we are going to create a new interval that is made out of the beginning values of these two interval values. And even for the ending portion, we are again going to repeat the same process that to find the interval that is made out of the two ending values difference, nothing more than that. And after that, after this loop ends, basically we would have our result populated inside this new list we have created, and we can simply return that. Let's try to run this code. Okay, seems like our solution is working as expected. Let's submit this code. And our code runs pretty efficiently in terms of time and space complexity. So you can see how interval problems are behaving. I just showed you this solution because I haven't solved this before, and I just thought that you at least get some idea on how these interval items are being done.